Welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight. Let's get right to it because I have Alderman Ray Lopez on the line. He is a voice of reason in a sea of disinformation, misinformation, and downright just ridiculousness when you look at the Chicago City Council. And I say that with complete honesty, especially after the Conyers-Irvin TDS infection that said that we're not going to invest in any U.S. treasuries, which is nonsensical, to say the least. And I know the alderman agreed with that, as did the Chicago Tribune, as did the Wall Street Journal, as did numerous other publications around the world. So, I mean, this is just the latest, and we did cover that in the first hour a little bit. But Ray Lopez is just a voice of common sense. And when it comes to any of the issues, whether it's sanctuary state, immigration, property taxes, the budget, I really appreciate him weighing in with just common sense ideas. And so I asked him to join me tonight, and I'm really thrilled that he has done it because there's important conversations that go on as it pertains to Chicago and as that then pertains to the rest of the state. So, again, this is a show that focuses on local and state politics in Illinois, and that's why it's really important to hear from all sides. Let's start with this, though. Ray, you wrote a letter to Donald Trump essentially asking that, you know what, maybe there's some way that we can work together on this immigration issue. And so I just wanted you to kind of explain your position with that and ask you if you got a response yet.
Sure, Jeanne. Thank you for having me on the show, and good evening to your listeners this Sunday night. About 3.5 weeks ago, I sent a letter to President Donald Trump trying to come up with a solution to our dysfunctional immigration system here in the United States. And it was a two-pronged approach to dealing with the border crisis as it relates to both nationally and locally here in the city of Chicago. And what it basically said was, we have to separate the two parts of the undocumented universe, of the non-citizen universe, basically. We all know that roughly 15 million individuals or more came in under the previous Biden-Harris administration, were granted legal protections to stay, and manipulated asylum in order to gain entry into this country with their court dates put off for almost a decade down the road. Mm-hmm. Then you also have the 11 million undocumented individuals from countries like Mexico and others that have been here for 10, 15, 20 years, promised a path forward by every Democratic administration and politician imaginable, and completely forgotten about when the new asylum seekers arrived. So in my letter, I said we could address both issues simultaneously, and it allow him to stay true to his campaign promises, to his right, and do something more transformative than Ronald Reagan ever dreamed possible. First, dealing with the asylum seekers, you need to move up their merit cases, which determines whether or not they have grounds to file an asylum. And if they are found deficient, which I suspect 95% of them will be, because most of them were just told to put down employment as why they were coming here, then you deport them immediately and return them home to their country of origin. No one's going to argue with that. Mm-hmm. Second, when you deal with the long-term undocumented individuals, who in a city like Chicago is predominantly the undocumented Mexican nationals that have been here, including dreamers who were brought here by their parents, we can give them a path forward without needing congressional approval, because he could grant them a pardon if they have clean, clear criminal backgrounds for at least 10 years. Make them pay a fine for amnesty. I suggested $2,500, which is, when you adjust for inflation, 5 times more than what Reagan charged back in 1987, or 86, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And this allows us to separate the wheat from the thatch, the good from the bad. And when all of those individuals with the clean records take their pardons, pay their fees, and are given legalized status and can come out of the shadows, anyone who gets deported after that clearly is because they didn't meet the qualifications, and we probably don't want them in the country to begin with. That would give us grounds to continue to move forward with ICE operations targeting those who are, as we keep saying, the worst of the worst. It will allow him to legitimize and grow our tax base in a legal way here in the United States. And it would also deal with the Biden and Harris debacle with the migrant asylum seekers. because I think at the end of the day, Jeannie, we need solutions. I am not concerned about trying to get myself pepper sprayed or pelted with rubber bullets just to earn my Democratic Party bona fides. That is stupid. Mm-hmm. And politically, this gives Donald Trump an opportunity to take something from the Democrats, which they have clung on to for a decade, and actually solve it and fix it, and then hold all the companies responsible to make sure that they go along with it. Because I'm sure there are some of your listeners who are saying, oh, no, we did amnesty, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because we allowed the businesses to continue to hire those individuals while ignoring E-Verify and everything else that we put out there. So this has to be a two-pronged approach that's not bound by politics. And as we know, Donald Trump is not bound by politics. He's bound by getting the job done. So I think this would be a great opportunity and a great win for him.
Yeah, and he's actually sort of a lame duck president, quite frankly. So he's made big, bold decisions to do certain things that a lot of people may have a problem with. Blowing up Venezuelan drug boats, which people want to argue about that. They want to argue about a lot of things about his presidency. He seems to just be solution oriented. Have you heard back from the White House on this?
So as our timing would have it, we have not heard back directly from the White House. The week the letter was, I'm assuming, arriving at the White House, he was announcing Middle East peace and the end of 8 wars. Right. And then he went to Asia, But I believe that we have a multi-front approach in getting this before him. And my sources tell me that they are, in fact, discussing something along this lines now within the White House. So directly or indirectly, the wheels are moving in our favor on this topic.
Well, and to your credit, Ray, you haven't been out at Broadview, joining the protest mania there and, interfering with ICE operations. You've actually requested that the city get rid of its sanctuary state status because it is dangerous. And honestly, I think overall, if we weren't a sanctuary state, we would have much better operations, and cooperation would mean that, some of the stuff that you see happening probably wouldn't happen.
Well, that's, in my opinion, exactly why they did not want to change the welcoming city ordinance. They did not want to amend any of the sanctuary laws because they wanted those pictures of ICE and CBP in our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Having our police and federal agents do a peaceful transfer of custody of someone who we have caught selling drugs, trafficking women, or abusing children doesn't make for good headlines.
Right.
Having the tamale lady arrested because ICE was going through the neighborhood chasing someone and bumped into her too. That's what my colleagues in the Democratic Party wanted. That's what J.B. Pritzker wanted, what Brennan Johnson wanted, and all the Latinos out there. That's exactly what they wanted. They wanted their AOC at the cage crying moment.
Yeah, they did.
And they all got it.
Yep, they sure did.
And the only ones that have suffered are those long-term undocumented who've been swept up. Because you know who went into hiding were all the Venezuelan migrants who have legal protective status. Meanwhile, everybody in Chicago that's been picked up overwhelmingly have been not the worst of the worst, just the wrong place in the wrong time. But they were given a false sense of hope and security by Brandon Johnson and others who said, I issued my 15th executive order against Donald Trump. Don't worry, you're safe.
Right.
Or we're sanctuary.
Right.
Don't worry, you're safe. And now they're on their way to being deported back to their country of origin.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Okay, let's turn quickly to the Chicago budget because it seems to be a real political football for everybody. They don't know what to do, how to solve this budget problem. And then you literally had people in Lawndale last night creating a bonfire. ABC 7 reports on it. I imagine there were other people literally burning their property tax bills. Just are we at a tipping point? Are they going to actually make some cuts instead of trying to find new revenue?
Well, I don't think Brandon Johnson wants to find cuts. I don't think he knows how to spell the word, let alone articulate the thought.
It's 4 letters.
Because it's never come up.
Right.
We have always said that the city's budget has ballooned 50%, 50, since COVID. So from in the last 5 years, now going into our 6th budget or 5th budget post-COVID, we've gone from $12 billion to almost $17 billion. And the only reason there's a decrease this year is because Donald Trump took away about $500 million in grants. Otherwise, we'd be over $17 billion. But the reason that we continue to have so many problems, with this budget is that Brandon Johnson is trying to use all of the jobs created with COVID money and shift them onto the Chicago taxpayers. You had temporary money, which you're trying to make permanent, and taxpayers are being squeezed again. And many of us say, why don't we just go back to our 2020 pre-COVID budget, adjust for inflation, cut where you need to cut, and look at what we can do better before we ask for taxpayers for $1 more. And sadly, the mayor and his communist socialist allies do not want to go that route. He gaslights them at every turn saying, well, if I'm going to cut anything, I'm going to cut your garbage service. He's not going to cut the 15 deputy mayors that he pays $175,000 to sit around and tell him what a great haircut he has. But he's going to cut the frontline workers that actually deliver for the city of Chicago. So we're going to continue to fight him and his reckless borrowing, because what he can't get in new taxes, he's going to borrow. Tomorrow there are 2 bond ordinances, as you know, that's for debt. One for $2 billion, one for $1.8 billion. So this is year after year that we're tacking on billions of dollars in debt, just as we were just starting to come out from underneath it. And we are going to continue to see where, as revenues decline, as our inability to tax Twitter and Facebook, as hemp disappears thanks to Congress, and all these other pie-in-the-sky things fall apart from the mayor, what he's going to do is simply state, well, those sons and daughters of the Confederacy fought me because I'm a black man raising a black children with a black wife.
I'm tired of that.
That's what he said last time when we said no to his $300 million property tax increase. So I can't wait to see what he calls me and my colleagues this week when we say no again. And incidentally, he didn't even file the tax ordinance. He's trying to do parliamentary maneuvers around it because he didn't want anyone to see it until the very
Truth in
last
Taxation
minute.
Ordinance?
Well, he filed a letter about the property tax, but all the other $650 million in fines, fees, and what have you that he's trying to muscle through, he didn't file that. And so because he's not raising the property tax levy, he didn't have to necessarily do it immediately, but it doesn't make for good government. And from the people who scream from the lungs all about good government, no kings, and blah, 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 this is what dictatorship looks like.
Oh, for sure. So does he have 26 votes, yes or no?
No.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I don't even know if he's got the votes to get it out of committee, let alone out of the full city council. I've heard that he's actually praying for a tie just so that he could break it and show that he's standing up to eat the rich.
Well, he eats the rich. He's going to eat the young. He's going to eat the growing businesses. And you're going to continue to have like the highest vacancy rate in Chicago for offices in the entire country. And you now, of course, you famously now know that you have the highest sales tax rate in the country, too. Welcome to being number one.
Yep. And as more of those properties downtown, their owners and managers turn in the keys and walk away, their property tax burden, as you know, shifts to the neighborhood.
Absolutely,
Before,
it does.
It used to be roughly 60-40 downtown commercial real estate versus 40% from the homeowners paying the property tax. And I think that equation has now flipped to where it's 60% on the homeowners, which is why so many people are seeing their adjustments socking them with $1,500, $2,000 increases on their second installment. That's right.
I mean, when you lose businesses that pay property taxes, the government doesn't stop spending. They just shift it to residential, and it's just going to get worse. So we need a long-term solution with long-term thinkers like you, Ray, and I want to thank you so much for coming on The Real Story with me. I really appreciate your insight.
Well, I thank you for always having me, and thank your listeners for standing up and fighting not only for our city but for our state as well.
All right. We're going to take a short break, very short